a teenage whim, or a lifelong passion, a show of faith, or an act of devotion. There are universal stories hidden beneath our clothes and on our skin, created with just a needle and ink. Designs that reveal what we're like, what we value, or who we want to be. And while some may insist on defining them as a modern trend, tattoos have existed for centuries all across the world. This is the millennia-long history of an art form that's much more than skin deep. This is Otzi, also called the Iceman. He lived more than 5,300 years ago and is the earliest tattooed person that we've yet discovered. Like him, mummies from all over the world chronicle the rich history behind the art of tattooing. In Maori culture, tamoko tattoos use lines and symbols to reflect a person's lineage and personal history. And they were also signs of hierarchy and social prestige. In another part of the world, in Japan, penal tattooing was practiced for centuries, with decorative tattooing emerging in the mid-18th century. In 1872, as the country opened up to the world, tattoos were banned for almost 100 years, out of fear that they might portray Japan as a backward society. Even so, tattooing continued secretly for Westerners, who were fascinated by the beauty of traditional designs. In other cases, getting a tattoo was simply a matter of faith. Pilgrims displayed their Christian beliefs through tattoos that also functioned as souvenirs, capturing the memory of their journey to the Holy Land. Some believe that tattooing arrived and was spread throughout Europe in the 18th century thanks to British sailors. But that isn't entirely true. This is known as the Cook myth.
That is something that really you will find everywhere, but it's just simply not true. What really happens at that moment is that the Royal Navy and the French Navy and just generally record keeping gets better. So tattoos are kind of visible in the places that academics usually go and look for things, in like institutional record keeping. There is really just very clear evidence that tattooing in Europe actually doesn't change at all, weirdly, with the Pacific encounter. You don't see loads of people getting Maori tattooing or New Zealand or Tahitian or Samoan tattooing.
Others believe that, in the West, sailors, prisoners, soldiers, and workers were the only one getting tattoos. But the upper classes and kings, such as George V and Tsar Nicholas II, also inked their skin, with Eastern motifs, swallows, anchors, travel memories, flowers, animals, and names. Though these tattoos were difficult to see, since their skin was typically covered. At the end of the 19th century, an invention changed the world of tattooing forever.
So the tattoo machine was patented first in the US by a guy called Samuel O'Reilly, and then in the UK by a guy called Sutherland MacDonald. But there's really good evidence that both of those men had drawn inspiration from others who were doing experiments earlier on.
By the 20th century, tattooing in Europe and the US had become predominantly electric, with dozens of studios opening and new inks emerging.
And because there's a market now for tattooing and tattooers are competing with each other for clients, there's this very quick invention that happens over the last 2 decades of the 19th century where they are inventing greens, blues, browns. You see in the adverts, it starts off with like 4 colours, and then the next guy around the corner will say 7 colours, and then the next week it's like 9 colours, and then eventually all colours.
Today, we can find tattoos in various distinctive styles. From old school, which is characterized by its solid, clean, and simple look, using black outlines and a color palette consisting of black, red, yellow, and green, to blackwork, a high-contrast style which only uses black ink and doesn't incorporate shading or gray areas. This style generally goes hand in hand with dot work, which applies pointillism techniques to tattoos. There are also watercolor tattoos as well as geometric ones, characterized by their straight lines and use of polygons. And with all of these options, we always arrive at the same question: what to get tattooed? For some, their body is a giant canvas to play with and decorate. For others, it's a blank page where they can record a meaningful date or an important name. But no matter what tattoo you decide to get, or the motivation behind it, all tattoos are enduring pieces of art, destined to live on our skin and be part of us forever.